The following video contains footage from the Endwalker Media Tour. As such, this footage is not representative of the final product, and you will find significant differences both visually and elsewhere. I do remind you, please do not take this as the final version, but at the same time, thank you to Square Enix for providing me with this opportunity, and I hope you enjoy this. Alrighty then, so let's have a look at the Tower of Zot. I've decided to make a boss guide for this. We're going to skip past a lot of the trash here and go straight to the bosses. This is actually a level 81 dungeon in the Endwalker expansion, and like I say, we're not going to dwell on those ads or anything like that. They shouldn't really put up much of a problem for you. They're fairly straightforward. Stay out of AoEs, and AoE where possible is my advice to you. Of the three bosses in the instance, the first, Meoni, let's just call her Mindy for the sake of things, uses a series of mechanics that you'll need to learn for both this and the last fight of the dungeon. So let's learn these fights. Firstly, the boss uses an ability called Manasya Bio. This is a tank-targeted buster, and as you can see, this highlights it with a red marker on the tank. Stay away from this person. This will also place a debuff on that target. You can Asuna this off if you're a healer. Next up, you'll see Manasya Ice 3. This causes ice segments emanating from the boss's current location, moving outwards. Simply stand between these AoEs. This is then followed up by a large AoE called Manasya Fire 3. This covers the entire room, so we stand in the center of where the boss currently is standing to be safe. Then, immediately, you'll see Manasya Thunder 3 being cast. This causes the area directly under the boss that was safe previously to now be unsafe, and also causes other circular AoEs to emanate diagonally from that point. So basically, get used to moving from the safe zone cardinally every time you've dealt with Manasya Fire, and then move in and out accordingly. Next, you see Manasya Bio 3. This covers the entire side of a room that the boss is facing with a huge AoE. My tip here is to stay close to the boss here, for the most part, for pretty much the entirety of the fight. Move in, then out of the way, and you'll be able to avoid this. The closer you are, the faster you can avoid these AoEs, and it's fairly quick before this goes off. You don't really want to have extra damage and extra dots to deal with to cleanse off of the target if you're a healer. Transmute Fire will be a follow-up, which then goes into Manasya Fire. This places an arrow on the floor in the arena. This arrow, once you've found it, will attract red balls from the boss towards them. You want to avoid these balls because they do quite a bit of damage. They also place AoE circles as they move across the room. The arrow marks this new safe zone as the room fills with large-scale AoEs, so be sure to avoid the red balls and move towards the arrow. You'll then see Drupad cast. This targets people placing burns on them, and there's also another ability that goes out that causes frostbite. These are actually non-Asunarable, so you'll just have to heal through their duration. You'll also likely have the poison debuff applied at this point as well, but you can Asuna if you wish to, if you're a healer. That's pretty much the basic rotation of the abilities on this fight, nothing too crazy, and the rest of the fight just combines these mechanics together and rotates through it. You should try to remember these as much as possible, as I say, because the last boss specifically combines them with other abilities as well. So let's move on to boss number 2. Okay, so the second boss is called Sandurva, or Sandy for short. I think that's going to be the common nomenclature for that. Sandy starts the fight then with a red targeted tank buster, much like the previous boss, her sister. Nothing too crazy to worry about. And then she casts a line ability that's called Prapti Siddhi. This seems to be placed randomly on whichever party member it chooses first, and as a very, very quick cast timer, so move with haste to avoid this. She does this a second time, a third time, and you guessed it, a fourth time, eventually targeting all party members one by one. For that reason, it's a good idea to spread out. She then casts Manasya Berserk. This accompanied by on-screen text that says you will not steal away our prosperity, summons red balls across the room. These red balls always have a safe spot, a place with no red ball visible. Move immediately to this location before they all explode to be in the safe zone. At this point, you are probably all in melee range since the tank will have come with you as well and brought the boss. This is no longer safe. As soon as these explosions go off, spread out away from the boss as she does FFXIV, which puts a large melee range AoE under her to avoid that does rather devastating damage, although the cast time of this is rather large, so you have plenty of time. She will then teleport to the middle of the room. This is followed by her casting the effectively stop. This will cause players to be targeted by those line AoEs again from earlier, one by one going through the party. When it's your turn, you are actually stopped with a debuff and cannot move, forcing you to get hit by the AoE. For this reason, when she does go to the middle of a room, always be prepared to spread out. The worst thing you can possibly do here is accidentally stack these and die. Again, these are unavoidable damage, so this time the healer will just need to heal through them, unlike before when you could move from them. Afterwards, you'll see Manasya Confuse being cast. This makes your entire party look like the boss. Then Sandy herself will split into 6 copies. You have to find the one copy of her that does not dance or do any action or even move. When you find this static looking Sandy, run to her location, as the rest of them were actually AoEs and will explode. Remember to move from the melee range just after these explosions as well, like earlier, as she will put that powerful explosion back under her feet again. And that's pretty much it for Sandy's moveset. It's just more of the same with intense repetition, and honestly she is very easy peasy, but remember these mechanics as Boss 3 will take in all those into account. Speaking of Boss 3, let's get onto that. Alrighty then, so here we are, Boss 3, that's Cinderuva, or well, Cindy, I'm pretty sure that's where we're going with this. Cindy starts off alone, which, you shouldn't take for granted, and is a fairly interesting fight, but Cindy will be the one you want to actually DPS down first, make that your first target. Her first move is called Samsara. This is your tank attack, much like the other 2 sisters, which obviously doesn't have a red marker in this case, but just heal your tank. And then she will say, "Then face the full wrath of the Magus," at which point Sandy and Mindy drop down, making it a trio. This is all 3 sisters together at the same time, so bear that in mind with the previous fight's mechanics. The first move you probably will see is Delta Attack, as they go to the middle of a room. This produces a series of attacks back to back after this. I'm not sure if this is random each time out of a set of different patterns, but this is the patterns that I had, as you can see here. Firstly, we see the spawn of ice lines from all 3 sisters facing one direction, a proximity explosion to run away from, and line AoEs altogether. Move away from the proximity, time movements between the ice lines, and avoid the yellow strip AoEs on the floor to get to the other side of the room. They will actually place a second proximity AoE down where you just ran to once all of that goes off, so you do exactly the same. You turn around and run to the other side, again avoiding ice and line AoEs. Don't rush this, time it so that you don't get hit by the ice if you can, and you have plenty of time before that explosion goes off. You will then see Mindy casting Drupad and Sandy casting Isitva. Basically, one of those 2 abilities will go off. This is where you get your red tank marker tank buster at the same time as another tank hit here. Basically, it just seems to hit harder than the previous tank buster we had from the previous fight. Then we get Manusya Fire, which is the line AoE that goes around each party member. So you know how to deal with this now. You spread out and they go off one by one through the party. The moment they all teleport to the 3 corners of the middle of a room again in a triangle will be another Delta Attack. This is a reset and basically a new set of abilities and a new pattern. In this case, we saw a circle in the center of the room being safe. This then followed up by no longer being safe, as massive line AoEs appear on the floor, side to side, to move from. These line AoEs continue, and then they eventually spawn another safe zone ring somewhere to move into when the lines fade. Keep on your toes here and try not to get hit. At the same time though, as you're trying to go into this safe zone, purple markers go out on all party members' heads. Just as soon as the explosion ends from the circle you're standing in, you need to spread out as best you can and try not to stack these, or you're probably going to die. To do so, go into the safe zone, then spread immediately afterwards, just like that. Now we have our Drupad tank attack, then line AoEs to avoid, and so on until another Delta attack. For this one, as you see, I got lots of AoE circles to avoid and keep running away from, and line AoEs across the room as well as a stack marker to absorb with the tank on the whole party. Then it's just a repeat of the same abilities until you kill one of the targets. As I said, we're killing Cindy first. Once Cindy is dead, you then move on to Sandy, and then finally Mindy. The fight will actually get much easier the less of them you have left, as they can use less abilities and can't use Delta attack anymore, which is obviously heaven to some people when you say that. All in all, the fight is fairly straightforward when you get into it, but it kind of caught people unaware in the media tour the first time due to how quickly some of the mechanics go off back to back. It's a highly enjoyable dungeon, and actually one that made me love my new Sage main and confirmed that switch from White Mage. See you in Endwalker for more dungeon guides like this. Hopefully it was helpful. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you again next time. Bye bye.